G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. Today I thought I'd do a video that has come up a little bit in the comment section in terms of requests of looking at what our best 22 will look like 3 years from now. I did this last year on the True Footy YouTube channel. Now I've got a little bit more information and I just thought we'd revisit it ahead of the draft. I could have conceivably waited till after the draft, but I think this exercise will still map out what our young team needs going forward and what holes do we currently have in a team that we hope will be within the finals mix within 3 years. I'd hope so. And it also helps illustrate what we need at this draft, which I think we'll have a pretty good handle on. Midfield, key back. Those are the two that come to mind most quickly for me, but here you'll get a visual representation of what our team will look like in 3 years from now. So a couple of weeks back or a week ago, I did our best 23 after the trade period. So that's round 1, 2025. So this video will be around round 1, 2028. As such, I've made the following deletions from our list. Players that we can pretty much rule out are going to be on the list 3 years from now. So there's Jeremy McGovern at 36. Elliot Yeo, that will be the end of his 3-year contract. So technically he could play up to the end of 2027, but by round 1, 2028, I'd imagine he's gone. Tim Kelly will be 34. Again, probably unlikely to be there, even if it's technically possible. Jamie Cripps at 36. Dom Sheed at 33, I think will be well and truly gone. And Jaden Hunt at 33, I think will have probably moved on by then. So those are 6 retirements from our best 25-ish players right now. So before I get into the team, and I will display their ages and a rough approximation of how many games they might have played by then, because that is helpful. But we'll have potentially 6 players over the age of 30 by this point, but they might not be there. So let's go through them. Matt Owies will be 31 by then. He hasn't played a game for us yet, so I have no idea if he's going to be best 22 by then or if he's going to retire. It will be a 3-year deal, which means 25, 26, 27. So he'd need to be re-signed on a new contract to be on the list. Liam Ryan will be 31, Liam Duggan will be 31, Tom Cole will be 31, Liam Baker and Jack Graham will both be 30 years of age by round 1 of the 2028 season. Or at least in Jack Graham's case, he might turn 30 during that season. I can't remember exactly where I did the boundary for that one, but generally speaking, those guys will be 30 plus, and that's 6 players there. How many of those will be best 22 by then? I suppose we'll see, because now I'm going to get up my best 23 selected team. Bearing in mind, obviously, this is limited by the fact that I don't even know who we're going to draft at the end of November, let alone in 25, 26, and 27. But the point of this exercise is to look at what we probably need to recruit for, and I suppose like where the concentration of talent is. So let's get the team up now. A few things to help guide your eyes. The color coding is something that I've done for my purposes, and those are players that I'm confident will be best 23 in 3 years from now, based on a talent assessment on my part. In yellow, it's just a little bit more speculative. Now, you have someone like a Liam Duggan in yellow. It's not really a talent thing, but of course, by the age of 31, is it possible he's squeezed out of the 23? I think there's some doubt there. Harry Edwards and Bazzo probably go in yellow. Now, they are probably the best 2 young key backs we've got. Well, they certainly are. So there's some job security there, but we can't guarantee they won't get superseded by somebody being traded in or whatever. So they go in yellow. We're not sure if they're AFL level talents yet, but nonetheless, they're still the best we've got, so they make this team. What do the numbers mean? The first number in the bracket there is their age. By April 1st of 2028 is roughly what I've done it with. That's like round 1, basically. Or by then it'll be probably round 2. And the second number is roughly approximating how many games of AFL experience they will have. So if they're locked in to be best 22 now, I've gone 20 games a season plus 60, and then work down from there. If there's a player that's probably not going to be, getting 20 games next year, I've gone like 10, 15, and then 20 in some cases. So it's an approximation and it allows for injury a little bit. So let's get into it. In our back 6, I've got 3 green players: Brady Hoff, Ryan Marrick, and Ruben Jinby. 3 players that I'm pretty confident will be there. So Marrick on talent will be in this team. The leap that I've made here is that I've put him as a 3rd tour defender, and there's absolutely no guarantee he's going to be in the back line. I think he'll be in the team. Is it as a wingman? Is it as another key forward? Will we go with a particularly tall key forward line or forward line under McQualter? It's really hard to see, but I do think for list balance, it makes more sense to put him in the back line as that 3rd tour defender in this team. And just hope that Harry Edwards and Rhett Bazzo are up to the task of being genuine key backs. Rhett Bazzo at the moment is definitely a 3rd tall, but he could still definitely develop, whereas Harry Edwards at 200 centimetres, he's certainly going to be a key back provided he makes the grade. So the ones I'm confident about: Marrick, Jinby, and Hoff, and Duggan still makes this team, albeit as a veteran, and it is possible he gets forced out of the team. Maybe if we sign a Brandon Starcevich next year, it'll make it harder for him to fit in the team. But he still makes his team, and at 31, there's still no reason to suggest he should retire by then. He could easily be playing. Let's move to the midfield. You've got Harley Reid, Elijah Hewitt, and then Clay Hall. So that third on-ball position is still very open-ended. We've had Jinby move to the back line. We've had Jai Cully delisted. We've had Luke Edwards. Who knows what's happening there as I record this. He's still not been delisted, but a variety of midfielders that we'd hoped would sort of force their way into the team. Campbell Chess is another one. I've chucked him in as the sub here, but I would still highlight that as a need. Now, Clay Hall could still, there's nothing wrong with him being a best 23 midfielder, but a starting on-ball rotation and the next best after Reid and Elijah Hewitt, unless I'm missing someone obvious, I think that's somewhere we can definitely address. Another quality midfield talent to support Harley Reid and Elijah Hewitt. On the wings, I've got Baker and Hutchinson. It remains to be seen where they play on the field. I think Baker probably plays halfback and wing and a little bit of on-ball time as well. So you just kind of rotate him with Duggan. No real stress there. Ruben Jinby as well can still probably spend some time on ball. Hutchinson, is he an inside mid? Is he a wingman? Is he a half forward? Will he become a halfback? He is the most open-ended player that we have there in terms of projecting where he's going to play on the field for us. But I think he'll be best 22. With Johnston, Dewar, and Hutchinson, I personally feel like I'm pretty confident those guys are going to be AFL quality players, but none of them have played 10 games. So I decided to err on the side of being conservative there. There's obviously going to be some doubt on them, but I think on talent, they will still be there. Bailey Williams is the ruck. You could have gone Matt Flynn. At the moment, I think it's a 0-0 draw between those two after not the best of seasons. So we'll learn more this year as to whether or not either of those guys are going to be in our plans in 3 years' time. But the forward line, Allen and Waterman, no stress there. I have got Archer Reid in the team and Jack Williams on the bench. I don't feel strongly about either one being on the bench or on the field. Doesn't really matter. Obviously, Jack Williams is a bit more proven, so he's probably the better of the two, but I've chucked Archer Reid in the pocket and, I've put Jack Williams in green and Archer Reid in yellow. So I suppose Jack Williams is there to reflect the fact that he's the second ruck as well. Noah Long I've got in green. I do really rate this kid. I think he'll be there and, he's played more than 10 games for a start, so that's kind of arbitrarily where I put the cutoff. But Dewar and Johnston I expect to make the team. Is Johnston going to be a running defender? Will he be a wingman? I put him in as a high half forward. That's kind of how he was drafted anyway. So he could move around the field. Dewar, I imagine, spends a little bit of time as a wingman as well, but he's probably primarily a forward. And I feel pretty comfortable with the talent of those guys in that team. On the bench, I've got Jack Graham, Tom Cole, and Liam Ryan as a few veterans to round out the team, and Campbell Chesser as the sub because, well, you could put him ahead of Clay Hall on ball, but we're still learning, to be honest, what position he's going to play. Like, I still think that might change under McQualter. Will he play as an inside mid? Will they double down on him as a wingman? Will they decide that he's probably more a running defender? I think that's all still up for debate, to be honest, and we'll learn a lot more about Campbell Chesser. It's a contract year for him, so he probably needs to perform to some extent, but I absolutely haven't given up hope that he's going to be a best 22 to 25 player 3 years from now. So any other observations about that team? Well, if you consider the 50 game mark, probably where players start to take the next step. At Harley Reid at 80 games, Hewitt 65. Obviously, that's not a great midfield, to be honest, but Harley Reid and Elijah Hewitt will probably be entering their prime here, and that will be very exciting. I do really rate Hewitt. Same thing with Johnston, Dewar. They will have hit 50 games in an ideal world. Clay Hall could be, depending on how well he's selected over the next 3 years. Noah Long at 85 games. Marek, you see a lot of 50 to 100 gamers here, and this is, in theory, where we should start to see a fair bit of improvement. Ideally, we'll see improvement up to this point, but you know what I mean. We should be, in terms of team maturation, and if you rate the talent there, that should be a pretty good team. Albeit that midfield does really make me worried. However, obviously, this is assuming we don't recruit any midfielders for the next 3 years, and I will put up another team with some potential recruits in a minute. I've got a list of players that I think that will still be around potentially, or they could be around, but I am not confident enough to put them in my team. Tyler Brockman, Harry Barnett, Callum Jamieson, Jack Petruccelli, Matthew Flynn, Locke Rawlinson, and Cohen Livingston. None of these guys should have retired, and I won't put a line through any of them, but there is still a fair bit of doubt on all of them, to be honest, individually. I like the look of Cohen Livingston. I wonder if he's going to be one of those players that stays on the list for many years without cracking too many games, but will be a fantastic depth option. So I'd imagine Cohen Livingston, I'm pretty confident will still be on the list, because I think he's a good player without being super athletically blessed, but hard to shovel him into the team here, especially when, as a ruck forward, he's probably competing with Archer Reid and Jack Williams. So let's go through some potential additions to this team. Obviously, pick 12 and pick 26 Within 4 weeks, we'll know who those players are, and there might even be an extra pick in there if we trade back into this year's draft. So that helps, whether at pick 12 is Travalia, Allen, Lindsay, Cooper Hines. I don't know who it's going to be, obviously, but that obviously helps the look of that team. There's also the potential we get Chad Warner. I want to flick up the team shortly about what the team would look like if we do get Chad Warner. We also have a father-son prospect next year in Charlie Banfield, who looks maybe like a second-round selection. It's far too early to lock that in, but he's kind of a tall wingman, 188 centimeters, and he's expected to get drafted, so we can probably assume that he'll be available. Looks pretty decent. Same thing with Wes Wally. He's a pretty slippery little player, kind of hard to see on the field, but if you look really closely, you'll see a guy wearing a red and white sweater and spectacles. No, not really, but he's an NGA that is tied to us for next season. So Charlie Banfield, Wes Wally, amongst a few other academy players, I think those are the two best players that are likely to join West Coast 12 months from now. So you sort of add those in. And players that I probably won't put into the team, but players that we could conceivably recruit in the next 3 years. I would love to see us have a massive crack at Brandon Starcevic next year as a free agent, considering he won't cost anything in draft collateral. Jed Buslinger, who will be out of contract at the end of 2026. Again, I hope we ask the question, but no indication that that's going to happen at all. And then Dan Curtin. Again, I don't know if that one is real. We've heard homesickness rumors about him, but I feel like that might have been fake news. Just to add a little bit of extra flavor to this best 22 in 3 years, you've seen what I've got up conservatively based on what we know so far. But what if we get Chad Warner and we draft Xavier Lindsay with pick 12? That is my preference, but you could probably sub him out for Allen or Travalia or whatever. So adding Chad Warner, Xavier Lindsay, Charlie Banfield as a father-son, Wes Wally's an academy player. Those last two we can probably bank will be West Coast Eagles players if they are good enough for AFL level, which is still obviously up in the air. So with that being said, let's get up the team here with those players added. So you'll see I've got Xavier Lindsay on the left wing. I put him in yellow because even though I rate the kid, he hasn't played a game of AFL yet. He hasn't even been drafted, so he'll go yellow for now. But he could play 50 games in his first 3 seasons. Look, it doesn't have to be Xavier Lindsay. If you replace it with Bo Allen or Toby Travalia, who are the two other favourites for West Coast pick amongst fans that I can see, all 3 can probably be picked on this wing, so it doesn't really matter. Now look at that midfield though. They're with Chad Warner, with Harley Reid, Warner and Hewitt. If we are successful in getting him, suddenly that top end punch, that offensive capability, that clearance winning capability of that midfield is definitely of a team that could play finals. He will be expensive. It will probably cost us like 2 first rounders next year, our own and Hawthorns, if we keep those this time next year. But shit, I think it could be worth it when you look at a potential midfield like that. Add in Xavier Lindsay of this year, and I've chucked Charlie Banfield and Wes Wally on the bench there because they seem talented, although I don't have strong opinions on that. So that was just more for creative flavoring. I hate some of the words that come out of my mouth sometimes when I'm not planning them. But yeah, I think the balance of that team looks good. I still think you need a key back, and that's why I hope we're asking the question of a Jed Buslinger, or hopefully we unearth Harry Edwards as a genuine star of the comp. We have had a good success rate in the past with turning players that were drafted late into guns. So we'll see on Harry, but obviously that remains a big question mark. But I think that team has good balance, good offensive punch, and the forward line is talented and the least of our concerns going forward. Probably also need to look at a ruckman if Bailey Williams or Matthew Flynn don't rise to the level. We'll see. But there you have it, guys. That is my take on our best 22 by round 1 of 2028. Let me know in the comments anything I've missed. I think I got everyone there, but it is definitely not below me to make mistakes like this in videos like this. But hope you got something out of it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.